have to fear is
In war,
fear itself.
there is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
You find your way to the intersection of faith and politics. WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thank you for joining us today. Visit online at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. That intersection of faith and politics, probably no better time than election to think about how our faith should impact our politics. And our special guest to talk about it today, Kassie Dulin, former governor of Patriot Academy, voter registrar extraordinaire. Kassie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Rick.
Now, David and I have been talking about what you've been doing in your own church to get people involved. We said, hey, let's get her in studio and share with our listeners, because now you have a way to duplicate what you've done. But first, let's talk about specifically what you did. And you started years ago getting people registered.
Yes, we did. We started back in 2008 running voter registration drives for our churches, first for the primary elections, but then also for the general elections. Because one thing people don't really realize is they think so much about the general election, which is happening in November, but the primary elections that happen earlier in the year, when you decide your candidate for the Republican and Democratic parties, are hugely influential because the turnout is so low, and that's going to decide who's going to be your candidate in the general.
Now, wait, you said registering people at church. David, I thought we're not supposed to talk about politics.
Absolutely
in
not.
church.
She obviously doesn't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
You need to read the Constitution, Kassie. Read the Constitution. It clearly says you cannot do voter registration at church.
Very, very true. Right next to separation of church
Right,
and state,
exactly,
right?
exactly right, exactly.
These are those hidden phrases I haven't been able to find.
But let's talk about, for just a moment, because churches really are the secret weapon in the culture war, because they're the ones that have been mostly unengaged. And your church, Gateway Church, no small church, really good church. You've got a network of, maybe 1,000 churches tied to Gateway, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what is it, maybe 19,000 people at the church now?
We actually have over 25,000 regularly attending
So,
because we have 5
there you
different
go.
campuses.
So it's a small little country church.
But I will
Pretty
point
much.
out, it is not the typical mega church, because they're willing to take on really tough issues and say really hard things, and it's not all feel-good stuff. I mean, it is very righteousness-oriented. And so you talk about mobilizing a church of 25,000. I'm from a town with 220 people. I mean, one of their Sunday school classes could vote the whole city council in our town, just one.
Yeah.
But church has not been involved. And so the fact that Gateway has stepped up on this, and that Gateway really is the head of a network of nearly 1,000 churches, I mean, that literally has huge consequences. And I love what you said about the primaries as well, because that really is where a lot of races are decided. In Texas, we have turned into a pretty red state, which means that the general elections don't hold that much anymore. The decisions are really made in the primaries, and that's where the turnout is so tiny.
Yes, sir. And we saw that we had so many people at our church who were concerned about America and what was happening at the local and state level, but they just didn't really know what to do about it. And I've talked to a lot of people, even in this last election cycle, that say, I'm not sure where to find out about it. I want to vote, but I want to be educated. I don't know how to do that. And so what we said is we want to provide the tools for you to do that. So really the work that I've been doing has kind of had 2 focuses. First, on helping churches know how they can get politically active and involved through encouraging their people to vote, but then also for the members, providing resources for them so they can get educated on their vote. So what we did is we created a website called voteundergod.com. And it has those 2 elements. If you go to the website, voteundergod.com, you can see on the homepage we primarily focus on the voters with 4 simple steps to make your vote count. And you can check if you're registered to vote. You can learn what are biblical reasons why we should vote. Because I'm sure we've all experienced this. A lot of people aren't sure. Should Christians vote? Should they be involved in government? What does the Bible say about it? So we wanted to provide that as a resource.
And you guys are a good Bible teaching church, so it's not going to be weak stuff. And by the way, this is stuff that I'm assuming any church can take and copy what you've done here.
Yes, sir. So that was kind of the resources that we had for voters. But then we have an entire section for churches. Because I've talked to a lot of churches and they say, hey, we want to do something, but we're not sure what to do, especially because there's a little bit of concern about what are the legal requirements. So we had a legal team go over every word on this website and said, this is stuff you can use. So we have, for example, an entire packet of how you can do an in-person voter registration drive. Most people think it's going to be really complicated. It is super easy. You can set one up in just a few hours by getting voter registration cards from your state. You set up a booth in the lobby, you make an announcement, put it in your bulletin. People can come up and get registered in just a couple minutes. If every church in America would just do that, take a few hours to set up a booth, get their members registered, I truly think we could impact the nation in one election cycle.
And when you say registered, so this is not a Republican or Democrat thing.
No,
this
sir.
is for a voter just to be able to go vote, whether they're going to go Republican, Democrat, or the general election. You're just talking about getting them on the voter rolls so that they can then go vote.
Absolutely. Every Christian should want to make an impact in the public sphere based on what their values are. So we're fine with however you want to vote, but what we encourage you to do is to get activated. We just want to provide a tool for you to get activated and registered to vote. So when it's time for election, you can use your voice and make your voice known and stand for your values.
So those fears that some pastors and congregates have about mixing politics and church and all that kind of stuff, having a registration drive, absolutely legal, absolutely okay. We do it in tens of thousands of churches across the country.
Absolutely. It's something that actually is very clearly outlined by the IRS that you can do as a nonprofit voter registration when it's nonpartisan, which is what everything we have on our website will tell you how to do it to where you're completely within the requirements of the law.
But if they're intimidated by, oh, I don't know how to do it, that's what you're saying. It's actually very simple. And you guys give them the packet. It's easy to do. Step, 1, 2, 3, and it doesn't take a lot of work. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take any of those things. It just takes a willingness to say, this is a service we can provide to the people in our church.
Absolutely. We have step-by-step instructions for how you can do the voter drive, starting from picking your date to, okay, what kind of promotion should we have? And then we have graphics that you can use for your church. They don't say our church name on it. It just says Vote Under God. And you can use that for graphics. We have short videos that you can run that say, hey, don't forget the election's coming up. Go out to vote. We have even emails. If you want to send an email to your church encouraging them to vote, but you're concerned about, oh, how do I word that to where I'm covered? We have that email on the website for you that you can send.
VoteUnderGod.com. We're going to have a link today at WallBuildersLive.com to make it easy for you to get there. You can share that link with your pastor and other people in your church and get them involved. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back. Our guest is Kassie Dulin. The website is VoteUnderGod.com. Stay with us here on WallBuilders Live.
Hey guys, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders, and I know you hear my dad and Rick talk a lot about our founding fathers, about the original intent of our nation, the constitutional heritage that we have, and really we've seen how far we've slipped away from that. And I know a lot of us, as we hear my dad and Rick talk, think, I wish there was a place that I could go and I could see these documents, and I could read and learn about the founding fathers firsthand, see the things they did. And I want to give you some websites today that can help you accomplish that very thing. If you get online, you can go to places like Library of Congress, and you can look under their Century of Lawmaking or historical documents. You can go to the Avalon Project, to the Founders Constitution, to Google Books, or even the Internet Archives, or you can just go to WallBuilders' website. We have a section for our library, and under that section we have different subgroups for historical documents, historical writings, even a place where you can get helpful links to find out more information about other websites where you can do research for yourself and find the truth for yourself. Friends, this is a time that we need to know who we are and where we came from. WallBuilders.com is a great place to go.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. We're talking about voting. We're talking about getting registered to vote. We're talking about doing that in your church, how to get your church involved and turn out more people to vote biblical values. Kassie Dulin is our guest. The website is VoteUnderGod.com. 60 million? Did y'all say 60 million earlier, evangelicals, and how many actually show up?
Yeah, not many. In the last election, you had about 39 million evangelicals that voted in the last presidential election out of 89 million.
Oh, 89 million.
So,
wow.
So you're looking, and the numbers vary depending on which polling group you go to, but still, I think 50, 60 million evangelicals that didn't vote could have done everything they wanted to in the U.S. Senate, everything they wanted to in the U.S. House. They could have taken every seat in every state legislature because, those seats so many times are decided by 1,000, 2,000 votes. Well, we're talking 50 to 60 million that's sitting on the sidelines. So,
yeah.
And so
well, in those state legislative races, sometimes it's a dozen votes.
It's a dozen votes.
Yeah.
You betcha. We just had our legislative races in Texas. We saw some of them decided by 80, 90 votes.
Yeah.
And a church like Gateway with 25,000 people, that's a Sunday school class. One Sunday school class vote and determine who your state rep is. So, Kassie, going back, because you've got stuff here that any church can take and do. All right, you guys are a big church, you're a mega church, but this works for a church of 15 people, 12 people, whatever it is. It's all the same tools because the process is the same. But here's the question I've got. Robert Morris, your pastor, a really good guy, good Bible teaching pastor, got lots of backbone, lots of courage. He is really not what I would consider to be a typical megachurch pastor, in that he will take on the hard issues.
Yeah.
And so he's been a pastor of this church for a good while. Why now? How come you? Why did he pick you? And why do the website now? Why not do it 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10? Why now? What's going on?
Absolutely. Well, I think part of why now is because anyone who's a Christian who cares about biblical values in America has to realize we're in a really critical time. There has been just a growing encroachment upon our freedom of speech and our freedom of religion, especially our freedom to express our religious views. And it's even coming down to freedom of worship. And so I think just we all realized this was getting serious. So I actually started doing this back in 2008. I'd gone to Patriot Academy in 2007.
Hey, that's a great program. I'm glad you mentioned that. No, go ahead.
No, but I went to Patriot Academy. I had very little interest in politics before then, but I went to Patriot Academy and actually heard you, Mr. Barton, speak.
We let him come? He was there?
That year, just that.
Wow, what were we
that was a
thinking?
mistake year.
I guess somebody must have canceled. I don't know what was going on there.
Fill in, definitely.
Actually, while we're plugging, David's going to be at all 4 Patriot Academies this year, so be sure and check out patriotacademy.com. Okay, there's my commercial.
Absolutely, which is a fantastic commercial that I absolutely
Which you were governor of Patriot Academy.
Yes, sir, I was in 2009. I was very honored.
Which, by the way, for folks who don't have a clue what Patriot Academy is, what's it mean to be governor? I mean, how does that work? What do you do?
So when you go to Patriot Academy, I did it in Texas, and we take over the Texas state capitol. We have a House, we have a Senate. All students ages 16 to 25 years old. So, and we run it in such a way that is so professionally done. We've had visitors come in and they think they're watching an actual floor session on the House, but they're like, I didn't realize your state representatives were so young here.
Yeah.
So really, you do exactly the same thing that the House and the Senate and the governor and all the bodies do, but it's all these kids that come in and you teach them how to function as a legislator, learn the process, learn how to argument, learn how to use argumentation, etc. So,
but with the right worldview.
With
That's
you're
right.
constantly coaching.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's because it is a biblical worldview, but it's really learning the process. So they all get together, and is that the voting body that voted you to be governor?
Yes, sir, that is.
Gotcha. So the House and the Senate and all those guys voted you to be governor. Cool.
So you learned about getting votes kind of on a personal level.
Very much so. Very much so. So that was a great experience. But it also taught me so much about biblical worldview and, of course, about the founding era and the principles that started our nation. So I just realized that it was time for me to do something. And I think I'd always thought to be involved in politics, you had to have a degree or you have to have this special experience. But from being at Patriot Academy, I realized a lot of people did have that, but some people were just people who cared about our nation and wanted to get involved, and they were giving of their time in any way they could. And I felt like God called me to do that at my church. So for years, I did this just as a volunteer. I contacted our leadership and said, hey, if I do all the work for this and I make sure we're covered legally, can I set up a voter registration drive? And they said, sure, do it. And so, but from doing it as a volunteer, I really learned a lot just about all the pieces that you need. So I hadn't really thought about, I need to have a bulletin announcement. So I know what someone from maybe a smaller church or who's doing it as a volunteer, what they need to be able to do this successfully. So I kind of put together all of my checklist, all of my step-by-step instructions, and all the legally covered material that we had to get that to
You're taking all the stuff that took you really several years to figure out the right way to do it and making it. How old were you when you started doing
it? It can't be several years. She ain't that old.
Let's see. I'm 27. I was 22 when I started doing it.
22 years old, and you're going to your pastor in your church saying, hey, I'll do all the work. We got to get people registered.
Absolutely. It was awesome. A leap of faith on their part, I guess. But they were very gracious to allow me to do that, and they checked it all to make sure we were good.
But now other people get to learn from your experience and not have to do the trial and error, trying to figure out where to get the information, where do I go to get the registration for all that. You're basically taking those years of learning this, the wrong way, the right way, whatever, taking all that experience, packaging it for people. They go to voteundergod.com and they can tap into that instead of having to figure it out. It's all done for them right there.
Absolutely. Really, my goal is just, can we create a one-stop shop where a church, whether it's a church staff member or a volunteer, can get all the resources they need to run a voter registration drive efficiently and simply. And what I love about the website, too, is you can actually run an online voter registration drive. We have a tool on here where you can go online, get your voter registration form, fill it out, and mail it in. You're registered to vote. And so you can just send out an email. It could be as simple as having your pastor send an email to the church saying, hey, this is an important election cycle. We want to stand for biblical worldviews. Please go to voteundergod.com, register to vote. It'll take you a couple minutes, and you could literally get 100% church participant voter registration and voting in one election cycle just through that one tool.
This is huge. There's not a single issue or election that this would not have a huge impact on. It could change everything in our country if we got pastors and churches turning out the vote, people getting registered and actually showing up. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. Kassie Dulin is our guest. Visit the website voteundergod.com. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. Today, there are numerous documented accounts of individual students being disciplined simply for bringing a Bible to school. Fisher Ames would have been appalled at this open hostility toward the Bible. Fisher Ames was the founding father who authored the House of Representatives language for the First Amendment. In his day, he vehemently objected to any attempt to minimize the Bible at schools. In fact, he declared, "Why should not the Bible regain the place it once held as a school book? Its morals are pure, its examples captivating and noble. The reverence for the sacred book that is thus early impressed lasts long, and probably, if not impressed in infancy, never takes firm hold of the mind." Founding Father Fisher Ames, the man most responsible for the wording of the First Amendment, believed that the most important school book was the Bible.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on WallBuilders Live. Our guest today, Kassie Dulin. We're talking about the website voteundergod.com and how you can take these tools and get the folks at your church registered to vote. David, this isn't difficult. This is easy for people to plug in.
Not only has she given us a model of a website, what every church can go to and get everything they need, because she's been through several cycles doing this, and she's very active politically. She's ended up being a national delegate, working all the way through from the local level to the national level and this stuff.
And worked on presidential campaigns,
Worked on presidential campaigns, exactly right. And so what I think is really cool is she herself represents a model, and that is, don't expect the pastor to be the one to do all this. I don't care if you got a small church or big church. You need to be like Kassie and said, "Hey, pastor, I'll volunteer to do this. I'll take care of voter registration. I'll get you the stuff. I'll go to the website and get all the stuff Cassie's talking about. I'll make sure." And if somebody will take that, because he's being pulled from 50 different directions.
Yeah.
He's got funerals and he's got graduations. He's got somebody's kids in town. They want the pastor to come see it. They got baptism. Got all this stuff going. Somebody needs to volunteer in every church and say, "Hey, I've got tools. I got Cassie's website. Pastor, I'll be happy to do this for you." And don't try to run over him. Don't try to threaten him. Go in to serve. Be a servant mentality.
Great point.
And as you do that, man, we can get so much done. But if you expect the pastor to do this, it's probably not going to get done. Now, he'll support you as long as you're doing it, and that's where Robert is. Robert didn't build the website, but he totally supports you building the website and gives you all the opportunity to get it out to the church. And so that's another thing that Kassie models, is not just what's on the website, but what she and her position vicariously represents for all churches, and that is, get somebody designated in your church. Go volunteer to be that person.
What if somebody says, our people are active, everybody in our church is registered?
I would really want to see the entire list and verify that myself, because a lot of times people think they're registered to vote or they're not, or people there's such a misconception that one vote can't make a difference, so they think, oh, it's not going to matter, I'm not going to vote, or they're not educated to vote. So really just a part of it for us was raising awareness of, hey, make sure you're registered to vote, because just like you were saying, Mr. Barton, about the pastors being pulled in 50 directions, a lot of other people are too. They've got their kids, they've got carpool, or they're homeschooling, and they've got sports and so many things going on. They care about the nation, but they think, oh, I'll do that a little bit later. But we're just saying, hey, we're right here at your church, or here's an email where you can do it. Just take a few minutes. We wanted to make it as simple as possible.
Now, let me jump in here too, Rick, because there's another tool, and Kassie will end up having this available on her website, but there's a different group that we've been working with just for the last few weeks that now have a really cool tool out there. And the tool allows you to take your church record list, all the members of your church, and you submit it, and it runs through the database, and it comes back and shows you a pie chart of how many of your people are registered to vote and how many actually do vote. And we've done this on a bunch of churches. Oh, my guys are registered. We got a very active church. Yeah, 25% voted last election.
Wow.
And they're going, you're kidding me. Because all the information is public data, all the Secretary of State websites. So we have every Secretary of State website linked in. We had all the data from it. We can tell you who's registered, who's not. That's a real simple little widget tool that you can use, and that'll look up your church, and it doesn't expose the name of your people because it just comes back as a pie chart.
And it'll surprise a lot of pastors.
Well, I'll tell you,
make them talk about it more, too, when they realize how few people are actually taking action.
Would you say, I mean, Kassie, you've been involved with WallBuilders for a long time. We've known you personally as a friend. Wouldn't you say that WallBuilders kind of has a tendency to incline toward a little bit of activism, a little bit getting involved? So we took our email list, our people that are regular with us, and we bumped it up against it and found out that 1/3 of WallBuilders folks are not registered to vote.
Wow.
Now, why would you be involved with what? But see, same thing with like National Rifle Association, 20% not registered to vote. Why would you be a member of NRA and not be registered to vote? And so the assumption is, as Kassie said, you're going to think, oh, my church, we're active, and it's not necessarily true. So there is now a way that you literally can see how much your church is active, and that'll really open the eyes of pastors as well.
Talking about the importance of turning out the vote from the church, getting people involved, getting registered, and voting, and how easy it is for you to do this at your church. VoteUnderGod.com is the website. Stay with us. Back in a moment on WallBuilders Live.
Hey, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders. And as you've had the opportunity to listen to WallBuilders Live, you've probably heard the wealth of information about our nation, about our spiritual heritage, about the religious liberties, about all the things that makes America exceptional. And you might be thinking, as incredible as this information is, I wish there was a way that I could get one of the WallBuilders guys to come to my area and share with my group, whether it be a church, whether it be a Christian school or public school or some political event or activity. If you're interested in having a WallBuilder speaker come to your area, you can get on our website at www.wallbuilders.com, and there's a tab for scheduling. And if you'll click on that tab, you'll notice there's a list of information from speakers' bios to events that are already going on, and there's a section where you can request an event to bring this information about who we are, where we came from, our religious liberties and freedoms. Go to the WallBuilders website and bring a speaker to your area.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us. We've got Kassie Dulin in studio with us talking about VoteUnderGod.com and the importance of you helping out. Kassie, David was talking about somebody's got to step up and sort of take on this role in each church if you want to get it done. And a lot of our listeners that are active and that do vote and that I've been there, complain about everybody else not voting. This is a chance for them to multiply their vote. I mean, if you really want to make a difference, get everybody in your church registered, get them out to vote. You're multiplying your one vote into 100 or 1,000.
Absolutely. And it's for me, it was just empowering to realize it's not that difficult. It seems really overwhelming, but hopefully through the tools we have, and really it is a fairly simple process, you can learn how to do it very quickly, and it can really multiply your vote. And I think in our last election cycle here in Texas, we just got through with the primary, one of our state reps I saw was elected by, it was less than 20 votes. So that small of a margin really can make such a difference.
And that was in a race that had nearly 30,000 votes cast.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been more than that. I don't recall the exact number, but it was in the tens of thousands.
Hey guys, I've been there. I lost by 20 votes the first time I ran for legislature.
And how many were cast?
And then
I
won. That was out of 30,000. And then I won by 36 after the recount. And then in another election, I had 45,000 votes, and I lost by 200 votes. So, there's no doubt a dozen votes here, any one church.
And with 50 million evangelicals sitting on the sideline, it wouldn't have been hard to get 200 votes with evangelicals in Texas. Man.
No doubt. And the worst phone calls are the ones afterwards. Oh, I forgot to vote. Or,
I thought you were going to win anyway.
Yeah, I thought you were going to win anyway. Oh, that's it. Oh, that's the one. Yeah, no doubt. So you don't want to be the one saying that at home. You want to make sure not only that you're voting, but you're helping to get other people voting as well. What kind of response do you hear from other people in your church when you do this?
Absolutely. Well, so many of them are so excited and so grateful. One of my favorite quotes was a woman who's actually the wife of one of our pastors on staff, one of our lead pastors, came up and said, "Thank you so much for doing this. I've never felt so empowered to go vote before," because she saw our resources and she realized this is important. This is an important election cycle, and I can make a difference. And we also once we get a little farther toward the 2014 election cycle, we'll have voter guides for the general election
great
up
point,
on the
because
website.
a lot of people will say, I'm registered, but I don't know who to vote for.
Exactly. So we also, on our church's website, we created a little webpage, vote.gatewaypeople.com. We had, here are the dates of the election. Here's where you can go to find your polling location. Here are biblical reasons to vote. And also, hey, here's where you can get a values-based voter guide. And what we did is we worked with Texas Values, which is a fantastic organization, and they took every candidate and said, here's their voting ratings by interest groups, like pro-life groups, pro-family groups, pro-Second Amendment groups. Here are some of their voting patterns in the past. Here's endorsements they've received. Hey, here's even their position on these issues. Here's where they go to church. So it just provided fantastic info. And our members were able to go and look at that and say, okay, here's my values. Here's where I stand on these issues. Where does the legislator stand? And they could find the one that matches up the best with their values, go vote for them. And truly, I believe it made a tremendous difference in this last election cycle.
A lot of powerful information. In fact, I mean, you think people as involved as us would know every candidate. David and I were the night before the election looking at iVoter.com, the Texas Values deal, looking at these judicial candidates you don't know anything about. They've gone in and interviewed. They've gone in and found out who gave money. It's really great at helping us get informed, because, we don't want to cast an uninformed vote and go in there and guess at which name sounds good. We want to make sure we're voting biblical values with each race. Kassie, very, very proud of you. This is incredible. I'm going to claim you since you're a Patriot Academy grad and take all the credit for you doing this. It is really, really great. And this is going to have an impact. It's already having an impact in your church. But as people listen right now, we're going to have people all over the country tapping into your website and making this happen in their home church.
And what's the website again? Give it again.
VoteUnderGod.com.
There you go.
God bless you, girl. Thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you being on WallBuilders Live.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Be sure and visit VoteUnderGod.com.
We stand undivided.